Hey guys, it's Nurse Pete here at Salted Desert, and today's video is going to be talking about the differences between breathing through your nose versus your mouth. And is there a difference? Many of you probably don't even think about it, because breathing is mostly an automatic function that we do throughout the day. But there are some big differences in how it affects your body from a physiological standpoint. Now, I did a blog on this about a month ago, but I felt that it was important enough that I needed to follow up with a video. And just to give you a little bit of background on how I kind of came across this topic and wanted to share it with you. I purchased a book probably several years ago called The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McEwen. And sadly, it sat on my shelf for several years, and I finally picked it up a couple months ago and read it. And it profoundly impacted my view on oxygenation and the importance of proper breathing, especially breathing through the nose at all times. So I'm going to share throughout this video some information that I gleaned from that book, just kind of a big overall summary of some of the key points of the book. And of course, if it is something that really interests you, I do recommend picking it up so that you can read it from cover to cover, because there's a lot of great information in there that I will not be touching upon. But anyway, so that's going to be the topic of this video. So let's get right into it. Okay, now before we go any further, I want you to just everyone stop and just give a moment of thought to how you breathe the majority of the time. Do you breathe through your nose, or do you predominantly, are you a mouth breather? And I want you to just kind of think about that. And also, if you are a mouth breather predominantly, I want you to think about how does it make you feel? Like, when do you go to mouth breathing? Do you do it when you're feeling anxious or stressed? Do you do it when you're even relaxed? Do you breathe through your mouth while you sleep? And these are all important things that down the road here in the video, it'll make sense. But again, just take a moment to think about how you breathe. Now, I never thought about it much before reading this book, and even just thinking about well, what does the nose really do? It's the nose is not just a pretty appendage on your face, or it can be, but the nose actually has very important functions to the air that you actually breathe. And so basically, let's start out by the structure of the inside of the nose, the nostrils, and further back into the sinuses. So your nasal cavities have these various ridges and bumps made up of soft bones called turbinates. And so what happens is when you breathe in through your nose, that air gets kind of swirled among those turbinates, and it kind of creates almost like a vortex, like air pattern that forces it back through your sinuses, back to the very back of your nasal cavity, and then it goes down into your windpipe and your lungs. But because of those turbinates, and it creates that vortex, that turbulence, it does several things to the air that you actually breathe in. The first thing that it does is it actually humidifies the air when you breathe in through your nose. So by the time it reaches your lungs, it's been properly humidified, and it's not so dry that it might cause irritation to your respiratory tract. It also warms the air, and that's another thing that it does. So breathing through your nose actually warms the air, and by the time the air reaches your lungs, it's almost the same temperature as your body. So think about that short tract, because you have so many blood vessels, and again, those turbinates, they swirl the air through there, and it warms it in the process of sending it back to the back of your nasal cavity. Another important thing too is your nose is actually, it helps filter out the air. So bacteria and viruses and things like that actually can get trapped in, your nasal cavity versus having it carried down into your lungs. So those are, just again, just listing off a couple of very important functions that the nose does. In addition to that too, your nasal cavity, your sinuses in particular, house a reservoir of a substance called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide was discovered back in the, I think, late 80s, maybe early 80s. And what they determined about nitric oxide is it's a potent dilator, meaning it opens up things. So it not only opens up your respiratory tract, but it also opens up your blood vessels. It dilates them out. So it helps keep your blood pressure down to a lower level. It helps open up your airways. And so if you're not breathing in through your nose, you're not carrying all that nitric oxide down into the lungs, and you're bypassing it when you breathe through your mouth, because again, the reservoir is up here in the sinuses. Another difference that you're going to notice when you start exclusively breathing through your nose versus your mouth is that the volume of air that you take in is going to be quite a lot less through your nose versus your mouth. And if you think about it, again, based upon the size of your nostrils, of course, the air volume is going to be a lot more restricted than when you take a big gulp of air through your mouth. And so, in a way then that your nose helps control that volume of air so you're not over breathing and you're not taking in so much air. Now, one of the myths is that, people think that they're going to oxygenate their bodies more by taking in more air and maybe even taking more breaths per minute. Well, that's not necessarily true. And let me explain a little bit about that. So, the majority of us have oxygen saturation levels between 95 to 100%. And what that means is that is the percentage of hemoglobin that is circulating through our blood that has oxygen attached to it. So that's the percentage that is oxygen carrying throughout the blood. So, some people, again, normal people without any type of disease processes would probably even have a higher than 95%, maybe 98, 99, even 100%. So, when you think about trying to breathe in more oxygen, you're already almost tapped out to the max. So it's really not going to be making a significant difference. Nothing that's really going to be noticeable to you and your body. So, but what it does do is those large volumes of air and breathing faster and more times than you need to a minute, what it does affect is your level of CO2 in the body. And so CO2, just to give you an idea, is not just a waste gas. And maybe, throughout your life, you've just heard that, okay, CO2 is just something that's a waste product and that is, we exhale it, okay? But it actually serves a very, very important position in the physiology of the body. Another important function of carbon dioxide too throughout the body is how it affects your blood vessels, okay? So what we do know this as well is that higher levels of CO2 cause vasodilation, or an opening of the blood vessels. And why is that important? Well, if you think about it, I mean, you have, blood supply to your brain, you've got blood supplies running to all your vital organs. And so it's important to keep those not so tightly constricted so that you have free blood flow and free nutrients and oxygen getting to those vital organs at all times. What they have done is they've done studies as well, of course, to see what the effects of low carbon dioxide levels are in the body. And again, when you start to lower your CO2 levels, you start to see constriction of the blood vessels. And, again, affecting your cerebral blood flow, the blood flow to your heart and your other vital organs. So, why would you want to do that? I mean, that's going to create a potentially, harmful state over time. So, again, another important reason why carbon dioxide is important, based on some of my experience in the hospital setting, I can tell you from firsthand experiences, some of the patients that I've had that have come in with strokes, with blockages in blood vessels in the brain. One of the treatments that we do is called permissive hypercapnia. And what that means basically is that we allow higher levels of CO2 in those patients that, maybe normally would be a little bit outside the range, but we allow it because it has that opening, that vasodilation effect, and it helps, improve blood flow and keep blood, flowing to the parts of the brain that have been compromised from the stroke. So again, another very important concept related to carbon dioxide. All right, guys, so that's gonna kind of complete our video for today. I hope you all enjoyed it and found it informative. And again, if you want to really get more in depth in it, pick up the book Oxygen Advantage. I think you would really enjoy it. Anyway, if you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, comment. It'd be much appreciated. All right, until next time, you guys take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.